Daewon wiped the sweat from his forehead as he dragged another load of metal scraps across the dirty floor. The orbital station was hot today, hotter than usual. He had been working for 12 hours straight, sorting through garbage that nobody else wanted to touch. His hands were covered in grease and his back ached, but he didn't complain. He never complained. The station was called Deepwater Reach, a massive structure floating above a giant gas planet. Thousands of aliens lived here, buying and selling things, making deals, getting rich. Daewon wasn't one of them. He was just the guy who cleaned up their mess. He was human, the only human in his adoptive family. His real parents died when he was 7 years old. Their colony ship had an accident and he was the only survivor. The Veltari family took him in. They were rich merchants who traded rare metals across the galaxy. They gave him food and a place to sleep, but they never let him forget that he was different. Velkar, his adoptive father, was a tall alien with skin like smooth gray stone. He always wore expensive clothes and talked about money. He treated Daewon like a servant more than a son. His adoptive mother, Sylvana, was quieter. She watched Daewon with strange eyes like she was trying to understand something she couldn't. His adoptive sister, Thessicina, was the worst. She laughed at him whenever he made mistakes and told everyone that humans were stupid. Daewon pushed his cart into the scrapyard, the furthest section of the station where old ships went to die. Mountains of metal surrounded him, pieces of vessels from 100 different worlds. Most of it was junk, but sometimes he found interesting things. Old computers, broken weapons, or tools that still worked. Today was different. Behind a pile of twisted metal, he saw something that made his heart stop. It was a ship, or what was left of one. The design was unmistakable. Sharp angles, flat surfaces, and a name written in letters he recognized. Human letters. English letters. He climbed over the debris and reached the hull. His fingers traced the faded paint. Pioneer's Shadow, he whispered. It was an Earth exploration vessel, probably 50 years old. How it ended up here, he had no idea. The ship was in bad shape. The hull had holes in it, the engines were missing, and the cockpit was crushed. But Daewon saw something else. He saw potential. He saw possibility. For years he had dreamed of leaving this station. He wanted to go back to human space, to see Earth, to be around people who looked like him. But he had no money and no way to buy passage on a transport ship. Velkar controlled everything he earned, giving him just enough to survive. But if he could fix this ship, if he could make it fly again, he could leave. He could be free. Daewon spent the rest of his shift examining the vessel. The frame was solid, stronger than it looked. The life support systems were damaged but repairable. He would need new engines, a new power core, and hundreds of other parts. It seemed impossible. That night he went back to the small room where he slept. It was barely large enough for a bed and a desk. The walls were gray metal, cold and plain. He pulled out an old tablet and started making lists. Parts he needed, tools he would have to buy, calculations for power and thrust. The next day at breakfast, Velkar noticed Daewon's tired eyes. "You look terrible," the alien said, his voice flat and cold. "Are you sick?" "No, father." "I'm fine," Daewon replied. He never called Velkar father naturally. It always felt forced. "Good, I need you to work extra shifts this week. A new shipment of scrap is arriving and I want it sorted quickly." Daewon nodded. More work meant less time for his project, but it also meant more opportunities to take parts without anyone noticing. Thessicina laughed from across the table. "Why do you even bother keeping him around, father? Humans are weak. They can't do anything useful. He works cheap," Velkar said simply, as if Daewon wasn't sitting right there. Sylvana said nothing, but Daewon caught her looking at him with that strange expression again. Over the next few weeks, Daewon began stealing time. He would finish his shifts early by working faster, then spend the extra hours at the scrapyard. He took small parts that nobody would miss. A coil of copper wire here, a circuit board there. He hid everything in an abandoned storage bay near the outer ring of the station. The storage bay became his workshop. It was dark and cold with no heat and barely any light, but it was his. He cleaned it up, set up work tables, and started bringing tools. Every credit he earned, he spent on supplies. He ate less, slept less, and worked more. One evening, while he was carrying a heavy power converter, someone called his name. "Daewon, what are you doing out here?" He turned and saw Jiwoo, another human who worked on the station. She managed the docking bays, coordinating ship arrivals and departures. She was tough and smart, with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Nothing," he said quickly, hiding the converter behind his back. She walked closer and crossed her arms. "You're a terrible liar. What's really going on?" Daewon hesitated. He didn't trust many people, but Jiwoo had always been kind to him. She was one of the few humans on the station, and she understood what it was like to live among aliens who looked down on them. "I'm building something," he finally admitted. "Building what?" He took a deep breath. "A ship." Jiwoo stared at him for a long moment, then laughed. Not a mean laugh, but one of surprise and disbelief. "A ship? Are you serious?" "I found an old Earth vessel in the scrapyard. I think I can fix it." Her smile faded as she realized he wasn't joking. "Daewon, that's crazy. Do you know how complicated ships are? You'd need engineers, technicians, and resources you don't have." "I know," he said quietly, "but I have to try." Jiwoo studied his face, seeing the determination there. She sighed. "Show me." He led her to the storage bay and opened the door. Inside, the small space was filled with parts and tools. Diagrams covered the walls, showing designs and calculations. In the center sat the skeleton of what would become an engine. Jiwoo walked around slowly, touching the pieces, reading the notes. "You're actually serious about this?" "I am." She turned to face him. "If Velkar finds out, he'll claim the ship for himself. You know that, right? Everything you build using station resources technically belongs to your legal guardian. That's the law here. I'm not using station resources. I'm buying everything myself. And working on it during your personal time?" "Yes," Jiwoo nodded slowly. "Okay, I believe you. And I want to help. Why?" "Because I want to leave this place too," she said. "I've been saving money for years, trying to buy passage back to human space. But tickets are expensive, and they keep raising the prices. If you can build a ship that actually flies, maybe we can both get out of here." Daewon felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. "Deal," he said, extending his hand. She shook it firmly. "Deal. But we have to be careful. If anyone finds out, especially your family, this whole thing is over." "I know." That night, Daewon returned to his room with a small smile on his face. For the first time since his parents died, he felt like he had a real friend. Someone who believed in him. The next morning, Velkar stopped him in the hallway. "I'm hearing strange reports about you spending time in the scrapyard after your shifts."
"What are you doing there?"
Daewon kept his face blank. "Just making sure everything is sorted properly. I don't want to miss anything valuable." Velkar's stone-like face showed no emotion. "Good. Remember, boy, everything on this station is connected to me. Your work, your room, your food. Don't do anything stupid." "Yes, father." As Velkar walked away, Daewon clenched his fists. He would prove them all wrong. He would build his ship and he would fly away from this place. They could mock him, dismiss him, and treat him like garbage. But they couldn't stop him from dreaming. In the scrapyard, under mountains of forgotten metal, the pioneer's shadow waited, and Daewon would bring it back to life. 18 months. That's how long it took to transform a pile of scrap metal into something beautiful. 18 months of bleeding fingers, sleepless nights, and endless problems that seemed impossible to solve. But Daewon kept working, and slowly, piece by piece, the ship came together. The first few months were the hardest. Daewon had never built anything this complex before. He knew basic engineering from watching repair crews on the station, but building a spaceship was completely different. He needed to learn everything from scratch. He found old human manuals and salvaged data cores from the scrapyard. Most were corrupted or incomplete, but he pieced together enough information to understand the basics: how engines worked, how life support systems filtered air, how navigation computers calculated jumps through space. Every night after work, he studied until his eyes burned. Then he would go to his secret workshop and work on the ship until dawn. He slept 3 or 4 hours a night, sometimes less. His body was always tired, but his mind stayed sharp, focused on the goal. Jiwoo helped whenever she could. She smuggled parts from the docking bays, things that shipping crews left behind or forgot about. A fuel injector from a cargo hauler, coolant lines from a luxury yacht, small things that nobody would miss but that Daewon desperately needed. "You look terrible," Jiwoo told him one evening, bringing him food while he worked. "When was the last time you ate a real meal?" Daewon didn't look up from the power coupling he was installing. "Yesterday, I think. That was 3 days ago." "Really?" He paused, realizing she was right. Time had become strange. Days blurred together into one long stretch of work. "Eat this," she said, handing him a container of noodles. "You can't build a ship if you die from starvation." He ate quickly, barely tasting the food, then went back to work. The power coupling was the key to everything. It connected the fusion core to the engine systems. If he got it wrong, the whole ship could explode during startup. "Why do you push yourself so hard?" Jiwoo asked, sitting on a workbench and watching him. "Because I have to," Daewon said simply. "If I slow down, if I take breaks, I'll start thinking about how impossible this is. I'll start doubting myself. I can't afford that." "You really think this will work?" "It has to." The months passed. The ship grew. What started as a broken hull became something real. Daewon installed the fusion core, a human design he modified to work with salvaged alien power cells. The combination was dangerous and unstable, but it produced incredible energy, more than any standard engine. He built the cockpit by hand, shaping metal plates and welding them together. The seats came from a destroyed transport. The control panels were a mix of human and alien technology, combined in ways that would make professional engineers shake their heads. But it worked. Everything worked. The biggest challenge was the engine system itself. Human ships used fusion drives, pushing superheated plasma out the back to create thrust. Alien ships used gravity manipulation, bending space around them. Daewon decided to use both. It was crazy. It was dangerous. No one had ever tried it before. But Daewon figured out a way to link the two systems together, using the fusion drive for raw power and the gravity manipulator for precision control. The result was something entirely new. He called it a hybrid drive. One night, while testing circuits, the workshop suddenly went dark. Daewon's heart jumped. Had someone found them? Was security coming? Then the lights flickered back on. It was just a power surge, common on the outer ring of the station. But the scare reminded him how vulnerable they were. One mistake, one slip, and everything would be over. Velkar was growing suspicious. He noticed Daewon's exhaustion, his distracted behavior. He started asking more questions. "Where do you go after work?" Velkar demanded one morning. "The observation deck," Daewon lied. "I like watching the stars." "Waste of time," Velkar grunted. "Stars don't make money. Stop daydreaming and focus on your work." Assassina was worse. She started following Daewon sometimes, trying to catch him doing something wrong. He had to take long routes to his workshop, doubling back and checking for shadows. Once, she almost caught him carrying a large thruster assembly, but Jiwoo created a distraction, pulling a fire alarm on the other side of the station. Sylvana was different. She never said anything, but sometimes Daewon caught her watching him with an expression that might have been sadness. Once, when Velkar was yelling at him for being late to work, she quietly placed extra food on his plate when no one was looking. After 14 months of work, Daewon reached a critical moment. He needed to test the fusion core. Not a full power test, but enough to know if his calculations were correct. If the core failed, it could cause a massive explosion. He and Jiwoo prepared carefully. They sealed the workshop, set up fire suppression systems, and created an emergency escape route. Jiwoo stood by the door, ready to run if things went wrong. "Are you sure about this?" she asked nervously. "No," Daewon admitted, "but we can't move forward without knowing if the core works." He activated the startup sequence. The fusion core hummed to life, glowing with blue-white light. Energy readings climbed. Temperature increased. The whole workshop vibrated. Then, just as Daewon thought it might explode, the readings stabilized. The core was working. Not just working, but exceeding his predictions. It was producing 40% more power than comparable alien designs. "It works," he whispered, staring at the display in disbelief. "It actually works." Jiwoo laughed with relief. "You're insane." Brilliant, but insane. That success gave Daewon new energy. He worked even harder, installing systems faster. The life support came online. The navigation computer booted up. The hull was sealed and pressurized. After 16 months, the ship was mostly complete. It needed paint and minor adjustments, but all the major systems were functional. Daewon stood in the workshop, looking at what he had created, and felt emotions he couldn't describe. The ship was beautiful in a strange way. It had the angular, practical design of human engineering, but the flowing curves of alien aesthetics. It looked like it belonged to both worlds and neither. It was unique. "You need to name it," Jiwoo said one evening. Daewon thought for a long moment. He thought about his parents, about Earth, about all the nights he spent hammering metal and solving problems. He thought about the forge workers from old stories shaping steel with fire and will. Forge of Earth, he said finally. Perfect. In month 17, disaster almost struck. A plasma leak in the engine compartment triggered fire alarms throughout the outer ring. Security teams rushed to investigate. Daewon and Jiwoo barely managed to vent the plasma and hide the evidence before guards arrived. A security officer named Thorndeck, a four-armed insectoid alien, inspected the area. What happened here? Old equipment malfunction, Jiwoo said smoothly. We're investigating the source. Thorndeck's compound eyes studied her suspiciously. There have been multiple irregularities in this sector. If I find out someone is hiding something, there will be serious consequences. After he left, Daewon and Jiwoo sat in silence, hearts pounding. That was too close, Jiwoo said. I know, but we're almost done. Just a few more weeks. The final month was spent on testing and refinement. Daewon ran diagnostics on every system, fixed minor issues, and made sure everything was perfect. He couldn't afford mistakes. One night, he prepared for the ultimate test. He would power up all systems at once, running the ship at full capacity without actually flying. If this worked, the Forge of Earth would be ready for launch. He sat in the pilot's seat, hands shaking slightly. Jiwoo stood in the engine room, monitoring power levels. Daewon activated the startup sequence. The fusion core ignited. The hybrid drive hummed to life. Lights filled the cockpit. Every system reported green status. The ship was alive. Daewon laughed, a sound of pure joy and relief. 18 months of work, 18 months of doubt and fear and endless effort, and it was done. He had built a spaceship from scratch. How does it feel? Jiwoo's voice came through the communication system. Like I can finally breathe, Daewon replied. But even in that moment of triumph, he knew the hardest part was still ahead. Building the ship was one thing. Escaping the station with it was another. And if Velkar ever found out what he had created, the family would do everything possible to take it away. Daewon powered down the systems and sat in the quiet cockpit. The Forge of Earth was ready. Now he just needed the courage to use it. The trade festival came once a year, when merchants from across the galaxy gathered at Deepwater Reach to make deals. The station became chaos during this time. Ships arrived and departed constantly. Security focused on protecting valuable cargo. Everyone was distracted. It was the perfect time to escape. Daewon spent weeks planning every detail. He studied flight patterns, security schedules, and docking procedures. He calculated launch windows and escape routes. Everything had to be perfect. Jiwoo obtained fake departure permits through a contact in the administrative office. They listed the Forge of Earth as a registered merchant vessel, making a routine supply run. The permits wouldn't hold up under close inspection, but they would buy enough time to get clear of the station. Are you really ready for this? Jiwoo asked the night before launch. They sat in the workshop making final checks on the ship's systems. I've been ready my whole life, Daewon said. Once we leave, we can't come back. The Veltari family will report us. We'll be criminals, I know. But what's the alternative? Stay here forever? Let them control our lives? Jiwoo nodded slowly. You're right. I'm with you. They loaded supplies onto the ship. Food for 3 months. Water recyclers. Medical supplies. Everything they would need for the journey to the nearest human colony. Daewon also packed a small box of personal items. A photo of his parents, a worn book from Earth, a piece of metal from the original Pioneer's shadow hull. Launch was scheduled for dawn, when the station was quietest. Daewon barely slept that night. He lay in his small room, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that could go wrong. What if the ship failed during launch? What if security caught them immediately? What if Velkar had somehow discovered the plan? But beneath the fear was something stronger. Hope. For the first time in 20 years, he was taking control of his life. Morning came. Daewon dressed in simple clothes and walked through the station like it was any normal day. He passed other workers heading to their shifts. He saw alien families eating breakfast at cafes. Everything seemed ordinary, but his heart pounded in his chest. He reached the outer ring and made his way to the workshop. Jiwoo was already there, running final checks. All systems ready, she reported. We're good to go. Daewon climbed into the pilot's seat. The cockpit felt different now, knowing this was real. This was actually happening. He strapped himself in and activated the startup sequence. The Forge of Earth came to life. The fusion core ignited smoothly. The hybrid drive powered up without issues. All displays showed green. Perfect. Opening bay doors, Jiwoo said, working the controls. The storage bay had a small emergency airlock, meant for maintenance access. Daewon had modified it months ago to fit the ship. The outer doors opened slowly, revealing the black void of space beyond. Daewon took a deep breath and engaged the engines. The ship lifted smoothly off the floor, hovering for a moment. Then he pushed the throttle forward. The Forge of Earth shot out of the station like a bullet. The feeling was incredible. After 18 months of building, after countless hours of work and worry, the ship was flying. And it flew beautifully. The controls were responsive. The engines were powerful. Everything worked exactly as Daewon had designed. He let out a laugh of pure joy. We did it. Jiwoo was grinning too. I can't believe we actually did it. Daewon performed a wide turn, testing the ship's maneuverability. The hybrid drive responded instantly to his commands. The Forge of Earth moved like a dancer, graceful and precise. It was faster than he expected, more agile than any ship he had seen. He couldn't resist. He brought the ship around for a flyby of the station, passing close enough for the cameras to see. It was reckless and stupid, but he wanted them to see what he had built. He wanted them to know that the human they had dismissed and mocked had created something amazing. The Forge of Earth streaked past the observation windows, its unique design catching the light. Human angles and alien curves, metal shaped by human hands. Then the alarm started. Unregistered vessel, you are violating station airspace. Power down your engines and return immediately. Daewon's moment of joy vanished. He had known this would happen, but hearing the actual words made it real. Station control is hailing us, Jiwoo said, checking the communication panel. What do we do? Ignore them. Set course for the jump point. But before they could engage the faster-than-light drive, 3 security ships launched from the station. They were standard patrol craft, fast but lightly armed. Still dangerous. Security vessels approaching, Jiwoo warned. They're trying to intercept us. Then a new voice came through the communication system. A voice Daewon knew too well. Daewon, this is Velkar. I know what you've done. I know about the ship. Return to the station immediately and we can resolve this peacefully. Daewon's hands tightened on the controls. Not a chance. That vessel was constructed using station resources. Under station law, all property created by a ward belongs to their legal guardian. The ship is mine, boy. You are a thief. I bought every part myself. I worked on it during my own time. The law is clear. Return now or face criminal charges. Daewon ended the communication. His mind raced. Velkar was already claiming ownership, already twisting the truth. If Daewon returned, he would lose everything. The Veltari family would take the ship and he would be left with nothing. What's the plan? Jiwoo asked calmly. Despite the danger, she trusted him. We run. The security ships were closing in. Daewon pushed the engines harder, accelerating toward open space. The Forge of Earth responded instantly, speed increasing rapidly. The security vessels struggled to keep up. The hybrid drive was faster than anything in the station's fleet, but they were trying to box him in, cutting off his route to the jump point. New contact, Jiwoo said, checking sensors. Larger ship launching from the main bay. It's a Veltari corvette. Daewon's heart sank. A corvette was a real warship, not a patrol craft. It had serious weapons and powerful engines, and he knew exactly who would be piloting it. This is Thessicina. His adoptive sister's voice came through the communication system. Little brother, you've made a terrible mistake. That ship is family property. Surrender it now and father might forgive you. It's not his. I built it. You built it with our resources, living under our roof, eating our food. Everything you are belongs to us, including your creations. Daewon felt rage burning in his chest. They really believed it. They really thought they owned him and everything he made. I'm not your property, he said coldly, and neither is my ship. Then I'll take it by force. The corvette opened fire, not with lethal weapons, but with disabling charges meant to knock out engines. Daewon jerked the controls, dodging the shots. The Forge of Earth twisted and turned, moving in patterns that surprised even him. The hybrid drive made the ship incredibly maneuverable. He could change direction instantly, Accelerate or decelerate faster than conventional engines allowed. It gave him an edge. But Tessicina was a skilled pilot, and the Corvette had more firepower. She anticipated his moves, cutting off escape routes. The security ships were closing in from other angles. "We're surrounded," Jiwoo said. "We can't fight them all." Daewon's mind worked furiously. He couldn't win in a straight fight. But he didn't need to win. He just needed to escape. He saw his chance. A debris field from old shipwrecks floated nearby. If he could reach it, the obstacles would make it harder for the larger ships to follow. "Hold on," he warned Jiwoo. He pushed the ship into a sharp dive, heading straight for the debris. The Sina's Corvette followed, firing continuously. Shots hit the Forge of Earth's shields, draining power but not breaking through. Daewon flew into the debris field at full speed. Chunks of metal and broken hull plating rushed past the cockpit windows. He weaved between obstacles, using the hybrid drive's precision control to avoid collisions by centimeters. The security ships fell back, unable to match his maneuvers. But Tessicina kept coming, determined not to let him escape. "You can't run forever," she shouted over the communication line.
"That ship belongs to our family."
"It belongs to me," Daewon shouted back. "I built it. Every piece, every wire, every system. It's mine." He saw the jump point ahead, a designated area of space where ships could safely engage their faster-than-light drives. If he could reach it, he could escape. But Tessicina was still behind him, and she was getting closer. Daewon made a decision. He diverted all power from shields to engines. It was dangerous, leaving the ship vulnerable, but it gave him the speed boost he needed. The Forge of Earth shot forward like a meteor. The Corvette couldn't keep up. Daewon reached the jump point and initiated the FTL sequence. The last thing he heard was Velkar's voice, cold and furious. "This isn't over, boy. You've made enemies today. Powerful enemies. We will find you. And when we do, you'll pay for your theft." Then space twisted, reality bent, and the Forge of Earth jumped into faster-than-light travel. The station disappeared behind them, along with the Corvette, the security ships, and the life Daewon had known for 20 years. In the cockpit, Daewon and Jiwoo sat in stunned silence. "We did it," Jiwoo finally whispered. "We actually escaped." But Daewon couldn't celebrate. He stared at the stars rushing past the windows and thought about Velkar's words. The Veltari family would come after him. They would claim he was a thief and a criminal. Daewon returned to Deepwater Reach 3 days later. It wasn't the decision Jiwoo wanted him to make, but he knew running would only make things worse. If he didn't face the accusations, he would spend the rest of his life looking over his shoulder. "This is insane," Jiwoo argued as they approached the station. "They'll arrest you the moment we dock." "Maybe," Daewon said. "But if I can prove I built the ship legally, they'll have to let me go. Running makes me look guilty. You're too trusting. The system isn't fair to humans, I know, but I have to try." The station authorities were waiting when the Forge of Earth entered the docking bay. Security officers surrounded the ship, weapons ready. Thorndeck, the insectoid security chief, stood at the front of the group. "Daewon, exit the vessel with your hands visible," he commanded. Daewon obeyed, walking down the ramp slowly. Jiwoo followed behind him. They were immediately placed in restraints, not painful but impossible to break. "You are charged with theft of station property and unauthorized departure," Thorndeck said. "The vessel will be impounded pending investigation." "I didn't steal anything," Daewon protested. "I built that ship with parts I purchased legally." "That will be determined by the station authority." They took him to a holding cell, a small gray room with a hard bench and a single light. Jiwoo was placed in a separate cell. Daewon sat alone for hours, waiting, thinking about all the things that could go wrong. Finally, a guard came and escorted him to the authority chamber, a large room where legal disputes were settled. Arbiter Keshmora presided over the chamber, an insectoid alien with golden carapace and multiple eyes. She was known for being fair but strict, following station law exactly. Velkar was already there, dressed in expensive formal robes. The Sina stood beside him, looking confident and smug. Sylvana sat in the back, her expression unreadable. "This hearing will determine ownership of the vessel called Forge of Earth," Keshmora announced. "Velkar of House Veltari claims the ship as family property. Daewon claims it as his personal creation. Both parties will present evidence." Velkar spoke first, his voice smooth and confident. He was used to legal proceedings, used to getting what he wanted. "Arbiter, the facts are simple. Daewon is my legal ward, living under my guardianship since age 7. During his time in my household, he received food, shelter, education, and employment. Station law is clear on this matter. Property created by a ward using resources provided by their guardian belongs to the guardian, not the ward. What resources did he use? Keshimura asked. He lived on station property. He used station facilities. He worked in my employment, gaining knowledge and access that enabled this construction. Every aspect of his life was funded by my family. Therefore, his labor and its products belong to us. Daewon felt sick. Velkar was twisting everything, making it sound like Daewon owed them for simply existing. Your response? Keshimura looked at Daewon. Daewon stood, his hands shaking slightly. He wasn't good at formal speaking, but he had to try. I bought every part of that ship with money I earned. I have receipts for everything. He produced a data pad with 18 months of purchase records. I worked on the ship during my personal time after my shifts were complete. I used an abandoned storage bay that nobody was using. I didn't steal anything. He handed the data pad to Keshimura, who examined it carefully. These records show significant purchases, she acknowledged. Where did you obtain the funds? My wages from working waste management. Velkar laughed coldly. Wages that I paid him. Money that came from my accounts. He may have technically purchased the parts, but he did so using resources I provided. That's not how it works, Daewon protested. I earned that money through labor. It's mine to spend how I want. Under station law, Velkar continued, a guardian has claim to all property accumulated by a ward during their minority and wardship. Since Daewon is still legally my ward, his earnings and purchases fall under family jurisdiction. Keshimura considered this. Do you have evidence of independent operation? Proof that you functioned outside the guardian's support structure? Daewon struggled to answer. How could he prove independence when he lived in their quarters and worked at their facility? Everything was connected to the Veltari family. I have a witness, he said finally. Jiwoo can testify that I worked independently. Jiwoo was brought in. She explained how Daewon bought parts, worked long hours, and never used station resources improperly. Her testimony was clear and honest, but Velkar had witnesses too. Other workers who testified that Daewon used station tools sometimes. Maintenance crews who said he accessed storage areas without authorization. Small things that individually meant nothing, but together painted a picture of someone taking advantage of station resources. The hearing went on for hours. Both sides presented evidence, argued interpretations of law, and made their cases. Keshimura listened carefully to everything. Then Thesacina spoke. Arbiter, I have additional evidence. She produced documents that made Daewon's blood run cold. Financial records showing that Velkar had deposited extra funds into Daewon's account over the past 18 months. Not wages, but transfers labeled as family support allowance. As you can see, Thesacina said smoothly, my father provided Daewon with additional funding beyond his wages. This money was used to purchase ship components. Therefore, the ship was built using family resources. Daewon stared at the documents in shock. That's not true. I never received any allowance. The records don't lie. Thesacina smiled. They're fake. You altered the financial data. But he had no proof. The records looked official, complete with timestamps and authorization codes. Keshimura examined them carefully. These appear to be legitimate transactions, she said slowly. They're not. I swear I never saw this money. Velkar stood. Arbiter, my ward is clearly emotional and confused. The records are clear. We supported him financially, and he used that support to build a vessel. Under station law, that vessel belongs to the family. Daewon felt everything slipping away. They had planned this perfectly. The falsified records would be nearly impossible to disprove. His word against official documents, then a voice spoke from the back of the chamber. That's not true. Everyone turned. Sylvana stood, her alien features calm but her voice firm. Mother, sit down, Thesacina hissed. No. Sylvana walked to the front of the chamber. Arbiter, I have something to say. Velkar's stone-like face showed emotion for the first time, anger flickering in his eyes. This is not your concern. It is my concern. I am part of this family, and I will not stand by while you commit fraud. What are you talking about? Velkar's voice was dangerous. Sylvana looked directly at Keshimura. Those financial records are false. My husband altered them yesterday after Daewon's return. I witnessed him doing it. He created fake transactions to support his legal claim. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Velkar's face went dark with rage. You dare betray your own family? I dare tell the truth, Sylvana replied calmly. Daewon built that ship independently. I watched him work for 18 months. I saw his exhaustion, his dedication. He bought every part himself, with money he earned through his own labor. He never received any family allowance. Why would you say this? The Assassina demanded. He's just a human. He's nothing to us. Sylvana turned to her daughter. He is something I failed to understand until now. He is human. Do you know what that means? I studied their history during his wardship. Humans build things not because it is profitable or logical, but because they must. They dream of impossible things and make them real through sheer determination. She looked at Daewon. I watched you work every night. I saw you sacrifice everything for this dream. I stayed silent because I didn't understand. But I understand now. You built that ship because it represents freedom, hope, and the refusal to be limited by circumstances. Those are human traits, and I will not let my family steal them from you. Velkar stood, fury radiating from him. You have destroyed this family with your foolishness. No, Sylvana said quietly. You destroyed it with your greed. Keshimura raised a hand for silence. This is a serious accusation. If the financial records are fraudulent, that changes everything. I need time to investigate. There's no need, Sylvana said. I have the original files unaltered on my personal system. I made copies before my husband could delete them. She provided her datapad to the Arbiter. Keshimura examined the files carefully, comparing them to the documents Velkar had submitted. Her expression grew stern. These files show significant alterations to financial records, she said coldly. Fabricating evidence in a legal proceeding is a serious crime. Velkar's confidence finally cracked. Arbiter, I can explain. Silence. Keshimura's voice was like ice. Based on the evidence presented, including testimony and verified financial records, I make the following ruling. The vessel Forge of Earth is the sole property of Daewon. He constructed it using legally obtained materials during his personal time. The Guardian's claim is denied. Daewon felt like he couldn't breathe. He had won. The ship was his, but Velkar wasn't finished. I file an immediate appeal. This ruling is— You may appeal, Keshimura interrupted. However, I am also placing a formal investigation into your financial fraud. Until that investigation is complete, I am issuing a legal hold on the vessel. Planning a heist wasn't something Daewon ever imagined doing. But the legal system had failed him, leaving only one choice. If he wanted his ship, his freedom, and his future, he would have to steal them back. Jiwoo brought 3 other humans into the plan. Taeyang was a maintenance mechanic who knew the station's security systems inside and out. Hana worked as a shuttle pilot and had flying skills that rivaled any alien. Minyo was a systems technician who could hack almost any computer network. They met in a quiet corner of the station's hydroponics garden, where conversations wouldn't be monitored. This is crazy, Taeyang said after hearing the plan. Stealing a ship from impound? That's years in prison if we're caught. We're already facing that, Daewon replied. Velkar will find ways to punish us no matter what we do. At least this way we have a chance at freedom. Hana studied the plans Daewon had drawn. The impound bay has triple security. Automated defenses, guard patrols, and alarm systems. How do we get past all that? That's where I come in, Minho said, his fingers dancing across a portable computer. I can create a system malfunction that disables the alarms for exactly 7 minutes. Long enough to get in and out, short enough that it looks like a technical glitch. What about the guards? Jiwoo asked. Leave them to me, Taeyang said. There's a shift change during the trade festival. For 20 minutes, the bay will have minimal staff. If we time it right, we might only face 2 or 3 guards. They spent 2 weeks preparing. Every detail had to be perfect. One mistake would mean capture and imprisonment. The next trade festival arrived. The station filled with merchants, ships, and chaos. Perfect cover for their plan. On the chosen night, the 5 humans moved into position. Minyo sat in a maintenance closet near the security hub, his fingers flying across his computer. Starting the hack now. Lines of code scrolled across his screen as he worked through the station's security network. It was complex, layered with protections, but Minho was better. He found vulnerabilities, exploited weaknesses, and slowly gained access to the impound bay systems. I'm in. he whispered into his communication device. Alarms will be down in 3 minutes. Taeyang and Jiwoo approached the impound bay entrance. They wore maintenance uniforms and carried tool cases, looking like workers on a routine call. The two guards barely glanced at them. Scheduled maintenance, Taeyang said, showing fake work orders. The guards checked the documents and waved them through. So far, so good. Inside the bay, the Forge of Earth sat behind energy barriers and security locks. It looked exactly as Daewon had left it, beautiful and powerful. His ship, his creation. Alarms are down, Minho's voice crackled in their earpieces. You have 7 minutes. Daewon and Hana entered through a service entrance that Taeyang had unlocked. They ran to the ship, moving quickly but carefully. Every second counted. Starting power-up sequence, Daewon said, climbing into the pilot's seat. His hands moved across the controls with practiced ease. The Forge of Earth hummed to life, systems activating one by one. Hana worked on releasing the docking clamps that held the ship in place. These locks are tougher than I thought. I need more time. We don't have more time, Jiwoo warned from the bay entrance. Guard patrol in 3 minutes. Taeyang appeared with a plasma torch. Step back. He cut through the docking clamps with precision, melting metal and severing connections. Sparks flew, bright and dangerous. The locks released with heavy clangs. Ship is free, Taeyang shouted. Everyone aboard, Daewon commanded. They scrambled onto the ship. Hana took the co-pilot's seat. Taeyang and Jiwoo strapped into passenger seats. Minho was still in his maintenance closet monitoring security. Bay doors are still closed, Hana said, checking displays. We can't launch. Minho, can you open them remotely? Daewon asked. Working on it, Minho replied, stress clear in his voice. The door controls are separate from the alarm systems. I need another minute. We don't have a minute, Jiwoo said. Guards are entering the bay. Shouts echoed through the impound facility. The guards had noticed the activated ship and were running toward it. Alarms started blaring, piercing and loud. The 7-minute window had closed. Forget the doors, Daewon decided. Minho, get out of there and find an escape pod. The rest of you, hold on tight. What are you doing? Hana asked, eyes wide. Something stupid. Daewon engaged the engines at full power. The Forge of Earth lifted off the bay floor, hovering for a moment. Then he aimed directly at the closed bay doors and pushed the throttle to maximum. The ship shot forward like a missile. The hybrid drive screamed with power, pushing the vessel faster and faster. The bay doors grew larger in the cockpit window. Solid metal that would crush them if this didn't work. Brace, Daewon shouted. The Forge of Earth hit the bay doors at tremendous speed. Metal screamed. The doors, designed to open slowly, couldn't withstand the force. They buckled, bent, and finally exploded outward in a shower of debris. The ship burst into open space, alarms still blaring. Behind them, the station's defense grid activated. Weapon systems came online, targeting the escaping vessel. Station defense is locking onto us, Hana reported, her voice remarkably calm. Multiple weapons charging. Hold on, Daewon said, his hands dancing across the controls. The space battle was chaos. Defense turrets fired energy bolts that streaked through the void. Daewon pushed the ship into evasive maneuvers, using the hybrid drive's incredible agility to dodge. The Forge of Earth twisted and turned, moving in patterns that seemed impossible. Then a familiar ship appeared on their sensors. The Veltari corvette, with Thessicina at the controls. I knew you would try something desperate. His adoptive sister's voice came through the communication system. Did you really think you could steal your way to freedom? It's not stealing when it's mine. Daewon shot back. The corvette opened fire, trying to disable the Forge of Earth's engines. Daewon dodged, but barely. The corvette was faster than he remembered, and Thessicina was flying with rage-fueled determination. You've destroyed our family's reputation, she screamed. Father is facing criminal charges because of you. I'll see you dead before I let you escape. The corvette fired again, this time with heavier weapons. The shot clipped the Forge of Earth's port side, causing the ship to shudder. Shields down to 60%, Hana reported. Daewon flew into a nearby debris field, the same one he had used before. But Thessicina had learned from their previous encounter. She anticipated his moves, cutting off escape routes. We're trapped, Taeyang said from the passenger seat. She's got us. But Daewon noticed something. The station's weapon systems were still firing, and they weren't being careful about friendly fire. Several shots passed dangerously close to the corvette. An idea formed. Crazy but possible. He pushed the Forge of Earth into a dive, heading straight toward the station's weapon grid. The Cessna followed, firing continuously. The station's automated defenses tracked both ships, unable to distinguish between enemy and authorized vessels in the chaos. "What are you doing?" Hana asked, seeing the weapon turrets ahead. "Trust me," Daewon said. He flew directly at a cluster of defense turrets. At the last second, he pulled up sharply, using the hybrid drive to change direction instantly. The Forge of Earth climbed straight up, missing the turrets by meters. The Cessna, flying a conventional vessel, couldn't match the maneuver. She tried to follow, but her ship's momentum carried her forward. The station's defense turrets tracking the corvette's approach opened fire. The corvette's shields flashed as multiple energy bolts struck home. The Cessna screamed in frustration, pulling away to avoid more damage. Her ship limped back toward the station, shields failing and engines smoking. But the station's defenses weren't finished. More weapon platforms activated, surrounding the Forge of Earth with targeting lasers. Then something unexpected happened. "The weapon's powered down." "What?" Hana checked her displays, confused. A message came through the communication system. Not from the station authorities, but from an encrypted personal channel. Sylvana's voice, calm and clear. "I have disabled the station's weapons targeting system. You have 30 seconds before backup systems engage. Go now, Daewon, fly far. Prove them all wrong about humans." Tears stung Daewon's eyes. His adoptive mother, who had always seemed distant and cold, had just saved his life. "Thank you," he whispered. He didn't waste the opportunity. He pushed the engines to maximum and headed for the jump point. The station's security ships tried to pursue, but they were too far behind. The Forge of Earth was too fast. They reached the jump point. Daewon initiated the faster-than-light sequence. Space twisted around them, reality bending. "Jump in 5 seconds," Hana counted down. 4, 3, 2, 1. The stars stretched into lines of light. The station disappeared, and the Forge of Earth leaped into FTL travel, leaving everything behind. In the cockpit, the 5 humans sat in stunned silence. Then Taeyang started laughing. Not a nervous laugh, but one of pure joy and relief. "We did it. We actually did it." Jiwoo was grinning. "I can't believe that worked." Hana shook her head in amazement. "That was the craziest flying I've ever seen." Daewon leaned back in his seat, exhausted but happy. They were free. Really, truly free. 3 years passed. The Forge of Earth became famous in human space. News of a human who built a ship from scrap and escaped alien persecution spread quickly.